Welcome back to Building Your Worldview episode 6. Today's topic is developing financial intelligence. Today we're going to talk about something most of us were never taught growing up. It's something our parents rarely explained and our schools almost never covered. Financial intelligence. But before we begin, let me set one expectation. This video is not going to teach you how to make $1 million overnight. What it will do is help you build a solid mental framework for understanding money and develop a healthy relationship with it, so that every financial decision you make in the future becomes clearer and more intentional. Today's video is divided into 3 parts. 1. What is money? 2. How do you build wealth? And 3. Essential economic concepts everyone should know. So, let's get started. If you want to make money, the first thing you need to understand is this. What exactly is money? Back in primitive society, money didn't exist. So, how did people improve their lives? Through barter. Imagine you were a farmer and I was a hunter. You wanted meat and I wanted vegetables. So, you traded your crops for my meat. Simple enough. But this system had 2 major problems. First, it was incredibly difficult to find someone who wanted exactly what you had while also offering exactly what you needed. Second, it wasn't practical to carry everything around. So humans came up with a brilliant solution. They began using items like seashells as a medium of exchange. Instead of trading my meat directly for your vegetables, I will first trade my meat for shells. Then use those shells to buy vegetables. That was one of the earliest forms of money. Since then, money has taken many different forms. We've gone from shells to mental coins, paper currency, and now digital money. But despite all these changes, its core functions have remained exactly the same. First, money is a medium for exchanging resources. Second, once money exists, every resource can be assigned a price. In other words, money also becomes a measure of value. But that's still not the whole story. Imagine I was a hunter before money existed. When I was young and physically strong, I could hunt plenty of animals. But no matter how much I hunted, the meat would eventually spoil. Years later, when I became old and weaker, I could no longer hunt as much. That meant I had fewer resources to trade and my quality of life naturally declined. But once money exists, everything changes. While I'm young, I can hunt more and earn more money, and choose not to spend it right away. I can save it for the future. Then, when I'm older and no longer able to hunt as much, I can use those savings to maintain my standard of living. In other words, money allows my younger self to take care of my older self. Now, think about it the other way around. How can my future self help my present self? Through borrowing. A loan allows you to use the value your future self will create to improve your life today. So, let's put it all together. At its core, money is a tool for exchanging resources. Think of it as a magical box. You put the deer you hunted into the box, and what comes out might be potatoes or a jacket or anything else you need. Once that box exists, almost everything can be exchanged for anything else. Money is also a measuring stick that tells us how valuable different resources are. And beyond that, it's a tool that lets you transfer resources across time. It allows you to redistribute the value you create at different stages of your life. From that perspective, money is almost like a time machine. Now that we understand what money is, let's talk about how wealth is built. Since we're trying to build a foundational framework, let's start with first principles. At its core, wealth can be described with a simple formula. Wealth equals income minus expenses plus assets multiplied rate of return. If I had to summarize wealth building in one sentence, it would be this. Convert as much of your income as possible into assets that generate even more money for you. If I had to reduce that sentence to just one word, it would be assets. Let's break this formula down piece by piece. And we will start with the most important part, the one that often separates a wealthy mindset from a poor one. Assets. So what exactly is an asset? Most people think an asset is simply anything valuable they own. A house, a car, a phone, a laptop, jewelry. If it's expensive, it must be an asset, right? Not necessarily. From a financial perspective, a true asset has only one definition. It's something that consistently puts money into your pocket. And by money, I mean cash flow. The greatest value of an asset is that it allows money to work for you instead of you working for money. Those are two completely different ways to live. One is the survival model, the other is a model of freedom and long-term growth. So what does working for money look like? You work hard, you earn income, that income pays for your bills and lifestyle. Eventually, the money runs out. So you have to work even harder to support even more expenses and even more desires. The moment you stop working, your current lifestyle can no longer be sustained. So if you are forced to keep chasing money for the rest of your life, in that system, money becomes your master. You are constantly running after it. Assets flip the equation. They make money work for you. Maybe you build your own company, maybe you invest in other companies through stocks, maybe you own index funds or bonds, maybe you rent out a property, or maybe you earn royalties from a patent or intellectual property. Whatever form they take, these are things that continue generating income independently of your time. They can make money even while you're asleep. That's why the key to building wealth is learning to think of money as your employee. Assets come in many different forms, but they all share one purpose. Whether you're working or not, they are still working for you. The day your passive income is enough to cover all of your living expenses, that's the day you've achieved financial freedom. A lot of people earn impressive incomes, yet still struggle financially. The biggest reason is that they never learned to distinguish assets from liabilities. The difference is simple. Assets put money into your pocket. Liabilities take money out of your pocket. For example, imagine you buy a house with a mortgage. Every month, a large portion of your paycheck goes toward that loan. That mortgage is constantly pulling money out of your pocket. If you don't own enough income and produce assets to cover those mortgage payments, you will still have to work nonstop just to service that debt. This is exactly how many middle-class families become trapped. From the outside, life looks successful. Nice house, nice car, a comfortable lifestyle. But only they know the truth. They can't afford to stop working. In fact, they often have to work even harder just to keep everything from falling apart. That's why the single most important part of building wealth is investing in assets. Because the ultimate purpose of an asset is simple: to make your money work for you, so that one day you no longer have to work for money. So where does the money to buy assets come from? It comes from your income. Then the next question is, how do you increase your income? To answer that, we need to go back to the essence of money. Money is simply a medium for exchanging resources. No matter how people make money, the principle is always the same. You are exchanging the resources you create for money. How much money you can earn depends on how valuable your resources are. And what determines that value? The market. More specifically, supply and demand. When you're able to create something that is in high demand but low supply, your resources become much more valuable. That's why if you want to increase your income, you shouldn't start by asking, what do I want? You should start asking, what does the market need? Whether you are creating value directly for customers or indirectly through a company, the principle never changes. There are only two things that really matter. First, choose the right market. Second, make yourself difficult to replace. The exact same skills can be valued very differently depending on the city, the industry, the company, or even the department you're working in. That's why choosing the right market is so important. Get as close as possible to cities that create more wealth, industries with stronger growth, companies with higher value, and roles that are paid the most. Once you've placed your skills in the right market, your next job is to build your scarcity. And that scarcity should always be based on what your specific market actually needs. The key isn't just becoming better at one skill. It's combining multiple valuable skills into one person. A single skill is much easier for the market to replace. Of course, depth still matters. You should absolutely become excellent at your core expertise, but depth alone is rarely enough. Someone who understands product development, branding, and integrated marketing is far more valuable than someone who only knows one of those things. The same is true for businesses. A restaurant that's delicious, healthy, cooks every meal fresh, and serves customers quickly is much harder to replace. So, the essence of increasing your income isn't working longer hours. It isn't simply putting in more labor. It's understanding the market, understanding supply and demand, and constantly improving both the value you create and efficiently with which you create it. Now, let's talk about the final piece of the equation: expenses. Different financial experts will give you different budgeting advice, but I only have one recommendation. Pay yourself first. That simple sentence has two meanings. The first is practical. No matter how much you earn each month, the very first payment should go to yourself. As soon as your paycheck arrives, set aside a fixed percentage before you spend anything else. That money becomes the principal you use to buy assets. Without capital, you can't own assets. Without assets, money can't work for you. And if money never works for you, you will stay trapped in the cycle of working for money. The second meaning is just as important. Use part of your money to invest your mind and your health. No matter what stage of life you're in, no matter how successful you become, the one thing that will always stay with you is your own body. Your mind determines how well you make money work for you. Your health determines how long and how well you get to enjoy the compound returns of everything you've built. So let's put it all together. Wealth equals income minus expenses plus assets multiplied by their rate of return. To increase your income, understand the market. Study supply and demand. Focus on increasing the value you create every hour. When it comes to spending, pay yourself first. And when it comes to building wealth, assets are the highest priority. Convert as much of your income as possible into assets that generate passive income. And always remember the difference between an asset and a liability. If there's only one idea I hope you remember from today's video, it's this. Always ask yourself one question. How can I make my money work for me instead of me working for money? Finally, let's look at a few economic concepts that are incredibly useful in everyday life. The first is opportunity cost. Our time, money, and energy are all limited. So every time we make one choice, we're automatically giving up another. The most valuable alternative we give up is called the opportunity cost. For example, imagine you spend 2 hours after work scrolling through short videos. The cost isn't just those 2 hours. Suppose you could have spent those same 2 hours working on a side hustle that earned you 15. Then the actual time cost is 2 hours, but the opportunity cost is the $15 you choose not to earn. People who build significant wealth tend to invest both their time and their money where the returns are the highest. The second concept is compound interest. In finance, compound interest simply means earning interest on both your original investment and the interest you've already earned. It's what gives wealth exponential growth. But compound interest isn't just a financial concept. It's a philosophy for life. Knowledge compounds, skills compound, health compounds, relationships compound. Small positive habits repeated over time create extraordinary results. So, build healthy routines. Stay curious, keep learning, invest in meaningful relationships. Given enough time, the returns can be far greater than you imagine. The final concept is a means of production. In economics, the means of production are all the resources required to produce goods or provide services. Put simply, they're everything that creates value except your own labor. In real world, those who own the means of production hold the greatest leverage. If all you can sell is your time and labor, your income will always depend on how much you work. But if you own businesses, intellectual property, technology, or other productive assets, they can continue creating value even when you're not actively working. That's why, if your goal is to make money work for you and generate passive income, you should do everything you can to own productive assets. In the end, building wealth is never a simple linear process, and it's certainly not something you achieve just by cutting expenses. It's a game of understanding how the world works, a game of making better decisions and building better systems. The more deeply you understand the underlying principles, the more confidently you will navigate every financial decision. But remember, the money game is not the whole of life. Money is a tool. It is never the destination. What truly matters is who you are outside the game and what you're ultimately living for. We learn to make money and understand the rules not so we can stay trapped in the game forever, but so that one day we will have the freedom to step into the world when we choose and step away from it when we need to. That's it for today's video. I'm Yu. Follow me for more to level up your mind.